Does Twister revive the 90s blockbuster, or does it leave audience twisting in the wind? Let's talk about it.
Bonjour, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Eye of the Storm podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing what you've been waiting for. But before we even get into that, we're here to give you movie recommendations. So guys, who wants to go first in letting the people know what was the best thing that you recently watched?
So the best thing that I watched this week is The Quiet American, which is a 2002 historical drama movie. It's essentially set in 1952 Saigon in French colonized Vietnam. And it's about this British journalist and an American doctor who both live in Saigon and are in love with the same Vietnamese woman. So it's basically this romantic drama where they're basically trying to kind of win her affections, essentially, while in the background, Vietnamese history happens. So the French beginning to lose control of the colony, and the communists are rising in power, and they're nationalists trying to fight both of those factions at the same time. And the romance plot is essentially an allegory for the broader situation of Vietnam, while it happens literally in the background, and the two kind of influence each other. So it's a really well-written, really well-acted story where you get a really good view into what Vietnam was like in 1952, especially if you know what happens later in its history, like the French leaving their colony and the communists taking over, and then the Vietnam War and stuff like that. So there's a lot of foreshadowing and setting the stage for history, essentially. But it's made personal by having that dynamic play out just between those three characters. And it's just all around an enjoyable movie.
All right, then. Cool. Have they?
I mean, I tried a few things, but nothing really really grabbed my attention. I think I tried to watch the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I think I lasted about maybe 40 minutes. Where I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling this at all. I did finish Dark Matter. And I know, Daniel, you had a question about how the multiverse stuff is played out in the end of it.
I haven't finished it, by the way. So
have you not finished it? Oh, so can I say
it? Episode 8, I think.
So I can't say it.
Let's leave it at, is it worth it?
It has a very interesting twist with the multiverse stuff that I didn't see coming, and I appreciate it. And I thought, okay, cool, this is quite interesting. It puts the main character in a very interesting predicament at the end of the show, and it leaves it off where they have to make a difficult choice based on the effects of the multiversal stuff. That's what I'll say.
Me, I went on a whole Predator rampage. I was literally just watching all the Predator movies. Yeah, man, the Predator films are just an enjoyable watch, man. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, then there's this like a monster extraterrestrial thing that they call the Predator. Even though I remember in the recent film, I think the one that came out in 2017, where they were saying it shouldn't be called the Predator, it should be called the Hunter or something like that, which was pretty neat. But yeah, I just literally went through watching all the Predator movies. The only one that I didn't end up watching was the Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. I didn't watch his one. And by the way, that's a classic one. Yeah, that is a classic one. I do love it. It's just that I didn't get to it. For some reason, I just kind of skipped it. I don't know why I skipped it. I was just out of it. But yeah, Predators, guys, if you haven't seen it, go and watch all the film series. Start with the Arnold one. Learn from my mistakes. But anyway, guys, full discussion time. Danny G.
So Twisters is a kind of sequel to the 1996 movie Twister, which follows stormchasers in Oklahoma. It follows a meteorologist, Kate, who lost family in a tornado years earlier and now has become a meteorologist studying tornadoes. And the story basically follows her as she gets back into the business of storm chasing, and the plot unfolds from there. A lot of people have said this is a direct remake of the 1996 Twister, which I rewatched the day before I watched this one. And I don't think that's true. I don't think it's the same story at all. It just follows a bunch of similar beats. So people go to the Midwest, there's tornadoes, they chase them, they do science stuff related to the tornadoes. But the actual story itself is not really the same. Twister has a reputation for being a big, dumb 90s action blockbuster. And this one manages to be bigger, dumber, and also about less. I thought the first one had a really strong story with really strong characters that were kind of propped up by the special effects that were groundbreaking at the time. And this movie does not really impress on the effects front because you can't impress people with realistic special effects anymore. But it also falls down at the character and story level. And so I got very little out of this. I think if you want to watch a movie about the subject, the first one is just better in every way.
I tried to watch the first one and I just couldn't finish it. it just felt very old. And what I mean by stuff, I don't have a problem with old movies. It's just I have a big problem, right, with background music because I can feel like I feel like it can be overbearing at times. It can kind of like take away from the film itself. Like I felt that way sometimes with Star Wars, right? So with the twist, like with the night, when did the old one come out? In the 90s, you said?
86.
86?
96.
Or 96, yeah. So with that film, I think the background music, it just kind of like, it just set a tone for me that was very jolly. And I didn't want it to be that. Because when I watched the trailer, I was introduced to like a serious film. But then obviously when I actually watched the movie, it felt, like I said, very jolly and family oriented, which is fine. It's just that that's not what I was expecting. That's why for me, I haven't even finished the old film. I just got like 20 minutes into it. That's when I took it off. But so maybe I just need to watch the old film. Because what about the old film to you was better?
Well, why don't we go through our impressions first?
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that. So I think this film was a solid movie when it comes to like a family type of film, even though there were like the kills were pretty brutal, not in the sense of it being gory, but it just felt very unsettling because it's like, damn, like some people actually die like that in tornadoes. So yeah, I felt like in that sense, in like a family type of film, it was solid. I wasn't angry that I spent money on this film. I just said I had a pretty like good time, a borderline good time, because I think it had moments. Like it was a film with moments, good moments. There were a lot of filler moments, but I think the beginning was very intense. Like it introduced you in seriousness. I was like, damn. And then the ending is intense too. But like I said, everything else in the middle was like a lot of filler moments. The problems that I felt with the film were like, they were just the storms, the natural disasters. It just felt very random and it didn't really feel coherent. And there were problems with like character interactions and the character arc, which I felt was lacking, which we'll get into later. But I did enjoy the character in terms like I liked her ambiguous. Like she felt like a character where you had to read in between the lines a lot. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. There were times when it didn't really take like that much persuading for her to get into certain things, which was a bit surprising because the things that did happen to her were traumatic. So then when she kind of got persuaded to get into it straight away without trying to spoil too much, it just happened instantly. So that's why I think sometimes, you know, the character interactions and that character arcs weren't really, especially hers, weren't really like flushed out properly. But besides that, I enjoyed her ambiguous character that she was giving off, you know, with her reading between the lines most of the times. It was fun. She was fun, even though she was a bit boring, but she was fun in a way. Overall, I think I had it was solid. I had a solid time, so I wouldn't ask for a refund.
I mean, there wasn't really kind of like much there that you can really take from this movie, to be fair. Like, I didn't really care for like the natural disaster stuff that was going on, like the storms. It was kind of like, I mean, outside of the opening sequence, where I felt like the tension there, outside of it, it just didn't really like move me in any type of way at all. I mean, like the story was like serviceable in it. It's just like manageable. There wasn't really a whole like point towards it, or like, you know, you couldn't really like draw much out of the story that was being told there. It was kind of like pretty generic and really basic, to be fair. Like the one thing I did enjoy actually was Glenn Powell in this. Like this is now the third movie that I've seen him in this year, and every single time I've enjoyed some of his performances. I do feel like he'd do really well in a better blockbuster movie. Or I actually like coming out of it, I thought that he would have been a good Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four, actually, if he was ever sort of younger or up for that, is my kind of impression from that. But yeah, like genuinely, I'm like trying to even like think. The movie was like so inoffensive. Like it was just there. Like Jonathan said, I didn't hate that I went to go watch it, but I didn't really take anything from it. I didn't really care for it. Outside of like Glenn Powell and the main actress, like a lot of the other characters were pretty underwhelming, to be honest. I didn't understand. Is it like, who's the new Superman actor? I think it's like Max Cogswell or whatever. He was in this movie. I didn't really understand the purpose of his character being in there at all. And then his like business party that he was going into, I just thought that he was just kind of, he just kind of like dragged the movie down. Anytime he was on the screen, he really dragged the movie down.
The new Superman was in this film. Who was he?
He was I even forget the Mexican guy's name. But
I know what the Mexican guy is.
Yeah, he was like his partner basically, but I didn't really get anything from him.
Oh, him. Okay.
Yeah, but not that I was like, you know, specifically looking for him, but I was just a bit like, why? Like it could have been anyone. I was like, why was this character here? It was just like a bit of a waste. But I think overall, like if you go see it, you go see it. I don't know how it's made all the money that it has, but it's whatever to me.
So. I didn't even know it made a lot of money. I have to check the box office sales, but
80 million.
Oh wow! So would you say that nostalgia was the reason for its so far success?
So here's what I think about this movie. I think this movie is very much sold as and perceived as a throwback to feel-good 90s blockbusters where you could just go to the movies, have a good time, and get a story, get some thrills, get some emotional moments, and then you go home. And this movie tries very hard to be that, right? In terms of its tone, in terms of how it presents its characters, the music, the spectacle, how it's all balanced out. It's not too heavy. It mentions climate change twice, but it skips quickly past it. It tries very hard to not upset anybody or bother anybody or lose anybody. And I don't know if that is what the explicit strategy in the studios, but this has the potential to bring back the big summer blockbuster, right? If it really hits a nerve and then others start copying it and stuff like that. And I think that's really that driving thought behind how this movie was made. That's certainly the vibe I got as I was watching it. Especially watching the first one and this one back to back on consecutive days. They feel very similar if you're not paying attention to what's going on.
But do people even remember the first film though?
So this came out in 96. I was 10 when it came out. I vaguely saw that people were excited about it, but I didn't watch it at the time. And I haven't heard anybody talk about it for 20 years, 30 really, almost. But then people started being nostalgic for it, saying, oh yeah, I like that movie and I enjoyed it and I miss those kinds of movies. Like that seemed to be the general sentiment of just about everybody that I saw talking about it online and in person. And I'd never watched it, and then I watched it in preparation for this. And I can see why people like it. Like it just works. It's just a good time, at least as far as I was concerned. And it really is kind of middle of the road for 90s blockbusters, which I think you can call a golden age of blockbuster movies. Not the best one, not the worst one, but just a solid one. And if you want to get back to that, then I think you could do a lot worse than copying Twister.
What do you mean by that?
So if you're a studio and you kind of look at how people are generally not very enthusiastic about movies right now, and then you look back to the 90s where the sentiment was very different, and that's where all the big stars were made, and that's where iconic movies were made, and there was just a general positive vibe towards movies broadly. I can see the motive of wanting to bring that back. And then you go down the list, okay, what can we do? Like Jurassic Park has been done already. The Matrix is run to the ground. Like what other feel-good movies, like big blockbuster movies from that era are there? And Twister is one of the big ones. And it just feels like it's tonally and how the characters are presented and the pacing and everything feels a lot like it's trying to copy that kind of movie.
Is Twister okay? So was Twister's one of the first of its kind in terms of like one of the first natural disaster movies that came out?
I don't know. I think it got attention at the time for how good the Twister effects looked.
Okay, I was about to say, because when I saw this film, like you literally like said it right. This film, it's a done well film. So it's not good, it's not bad, it's just solid. It's done well, right? And so that's why I was a bit like taken back when you guys were saying, when you said, oh, it was such a big hit back in the day. So I'm like, oh, I don't see why it'd be such a big hit. The only reason why I could think of is because it was the first of its kind in terms of like a natural disaster being on screen.
The first time it was really put on screen in a big way with CGI, because like mid-90s CG was rough. Like you had your standouts like Jurassic Park, which I think was 97, I'm not sure. But like if you watch mid-90s movies, they use CGI and it's bad. And Twisters was one of the ones where it really worked and it really wowed people at the time, which you can't do again, right? Because people are used to photorealistic, perfect CG, right? So you can't wow people with how great the effects look. And they don't even really try here, right? Like the storm effects and the Twister effects are good. They look fine. They didn't wow me at all. It's just there. And that's not because the movie is bad. It's because that's just how CG is. Like we're used to seeing photorealistic, fantastical things that they couldn't even dream of 30 years ago. And so it can't win in the same way that Twister did. But having seen the first one very recently, I was surprised at how good the characters were, which you don't really expect from a movie like that, like stereotypically. But what the first one did really well was you had these two scientists trying to get this prototype to work, right? This Dorothy measuring system, right? And they are racing against the clock, against a rival team with corporate backing who have more resources and who get all the fancy toys, whereas they have to make do with a shoestring budget. And they're basically trying to get the system to work to get these good revolutionary readings on these tornadoes, while at the same time they have their own personal issues. They're used to date, and she's driven by grief and like having lost people to tornadoes, and he's the one who's tried to move on. He's actually trying to get a divorce paper from her, and then the plot happens. So there is stuff going on with the characters, and you feel about them, and you are invested in their journey, right? And that is something that really stuck out to me in this movie, because none of that is here. So you've got Kate, right, who has the traits of both of the original characters, right? I've seen some reviews saying they kind of swapped the character traits, but I don't think that's true. I think Kate has all of them. She is the intuitive one who kind of has this almost borderline psychic relationship to tornadoes and can just sense how they're going to behave. And also she's the driven scientist who wants to defeat this phenomenon so that nobody else has to lose a loved one, right? So she has both of these character arcs in one person, which is the first mistake. And then you've got the Jerry character. By the way, I saw this in the German dubbing, which is a horrible mistake, and I'm going to get names wrong because I didn't hear it in the original version, right? But I'm going to call him Javi. He basically does not have that same kind of dynamic, and they don't really have that same dynamic that the two main characters had in the first movie. And then you've got the Tyler character who has no personality whatsoever. He comes across as this arrogant douchebag in the first 10 minutes. And after that, he's just a handsome movie guy who is there to support Kate. And he has no goal, he has no personality, he has no character traits, nothing. And that's the movie.
But couldn't you argue that was done on purpose? Because even in the first 10 minutes, we see that they weren't really that close anyways, because her close ones died. So they kind of like just got set up, put together by obviously natural causes, unfortunately. So I'm guessing that was intentional.
Yeah, but I don't think it really created an interesting dynamic. But I think Javi's kind of just there. And the fact that they get together in the end is a bit weird, didn't seem really earned. They didn't really seem to be on the same wavelength at any point. I think the bigger problem is Tyler. Because he has no personality, there's nothing interesting about him. He's just there to kind of tag along in the second half. And nothing that happens in the first half really matters. Specifically, so first of all, he didn't have a goal. He has this, like, he's a streamer, right, who streams essentially his storm chasing, right, which just disappears completely in the second half. And from that point on, he's just the science guy. And even the people who previously mocked Kate for being a scientist and not being in it for the thrill and the adventure now suddenly all care about the science all the time, which I don't think worked at all. But also there would have been so many opportunities to have like 3 different kinds of storm chasers, right? Where if Tyler is constantly has to take unreasonable risks in order to keep his subscribers, right? Or he has to do like he does do crazy things like launching the fireworks and stuff like that. But that happens at the start once. And it doesn't really inform the plot in any way. Like there's no tension between him and Kate because of this. It just gets completely dropped as soon as Kate gets into the science bits. Did you just have a different experience with that? Did you think there was something to Tyler? Did you think that whole love triangle thing worked?
I didn't even know there was a love triangle until he actually mentioned it when he came back for his car or just came back to apologize. Like when he said what he said, I was like, oh, okay. But the problem that I had with like just all the character interactions was that it didn't feel intense enough. It felt kind of rushed. Like even the scene when, what's the guy's name? Was he Mexican or just her partner in the beginning?
Javi.
That's Javi, probably.
Yeah, Javi, yeah. Even when he saw her again 5 years later and they were in the coffee shop, that conversation just felt like they were given lines and they were supposed to say it. The way that they just even he must have said a line where he was like, it's time for you to come back, or it's time for you to move on, or something like where he just asked her to come back, right? To join him on looking for storms and stuff. And I'm like, the way that he was asking and the way that he just said it, it was like, bro, like she lost 3-4 friends, including her boyfriend. It's like you guys didn't like show the emotion. Like we didn't see closure from that scene. It just went straight to, okay, our friends died. 5 years later, let's get into business. That was my problem.
Which I think it's understandable if 5 years have passed, but we also didn't see that process, right? We kind of just see them move on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It just wasn't like we didn't see the closure. So in terms of Glenn, Tyler, yeah, his actual name is Glenn, my bad. In terms of Tyler, I just think he was just there as a love interest. There wasn't really, I think the only thing that kind of like manifested the love was his not fascination, but his admiration of her gift when it comes to like how she can kind of like detect the storms and just, you know, what she was pretty much showing in the movie. I think that's where the love manifested from, but it didn't feel intense. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I think it was lacking for us to actually. Sorry, Heather, you're going to say that?
No, I was going to say I feel like the story didn't serve it well, but I do feel like Glenn Powell as an actor is really good at portraying good chemistry with some of those female leads in movies. And again, I've seen it a few times in movies this year, and I just feel like, despite kind of like the lack, to be fair, I actually wouldn't say that there was a lack of it. I kind of sort of believed the whole sort of it's your typical like romance stuff. He kind of seems like a bit too boisterous at the start, but then he turns out to be the actual like secret good guy that he's doing all this for sort of no good cause, which I didn't really buy, to be fair, in the movie. And you know, the whole like they have like this thing in common where they're both quite intuitive about their twisters and stuff like that, where she's maybe a little bit better than what he is, but he's able to kind of like read where she's kind of giving him like some of the bad information, this and the other, and you kind of like build a little bit of a flirty banter relationship from it or whatever. And I just feel like, you know, whilst the story doesn't serve it that well, I feel like he's able to sort of act it out really well, which is why I bought the chemistry between the two of them throughout the movie.
I think the chemistry itself is fine. It's more that there's no human drama to it, right? So maybe this is. I think you've both not seen the first movie.
Only the first 20 minutes.
But it's like, if you have watched any 90s blockbusters, there's like this very basic humanity to them, right? Where these characters are maybe a bit two-dimensional, but they have a humanity to them, and you understand their emotional state and you understand what they're going through, and so you care at the end when they succeed. And I thought that was really missing here, because Kate was part of it where things just come very easily for her. Right? Like there's a bunch of running from storms and then there's danger in that sense. But just in terms of her personal journey, there's never really a moment of growth or a big decision, right? The only decision she really makes is to get back into the science, right? To basically dust off her old project that was like 2 minutes from being completed and working. And she just figures it out in a barn in an afternoon, right? There's no real challenge there. There's no hurdle. There's no moment of growth. And everybody else in the world is just there to support her. And I think that's just not interesting. Like there's no real. So in the first movie, I'm not just saying it has to be like the first movie or anything like that, right? But it's more like the movies are so similar that you have a hard time not comparing them. What made it work in the first movie is that two groups, the good guys and the bad guys, were working on the same prototype. Whoever made it work first would get all the glory and all the credit. And the other group had corporate backers, and so they had more money and more resources and stuff like that. And so that's how it got turned into an underdog story. And half the movie's drama is about these two groups chasing against time to get this prototype to work first, because it's a winner takes all kind of situation. And that was missing here completely, right? So it kind of seems like it's the same thing with this radar thing, right? This military radar that they've adapted. That is not really a rival to what Kate is trying to do. And they end up working together anyway with very little pushback and very little danger or struggle. And then it ends up not really mattering, not really. Like it helps a little bit, but it's not really in an interesting way. So it manages to copy its predecessor in a very superficial and basic way, and then doesn't understand what made that story work in the first place. And also doesn't replace it with anything else, really. Right? It doesn't do something different that also works. It just kind of does the same thing, but not as good. And that is kind of how everything in this movie was for me.
How did you guys feel about the way the storms were introduced? Did you feel like it was random, or?
Well, they are random. Right?
I know they're random, but usually whenever there's a storm coming, isn't there like an indication or some sort of, kind of thing? There was like in the scene where not the horns, but the sirens or whatever went off, right? But isn't there like I'm sure weather reports, they'll let you know when there's a storm that's about to come.
I don't know how quickly they form, but the movie kind of also isn't really clear about just how prepared people are, right? So there are these forecasts, right? Like that's what Kate does in her office job, right? And then we see that there are storm warnings. There are these horns that go off. Everybody has a warning app on their phone, right? Where there's a scene at the rodeo where a storm forms within seconds and then everybody gets an alert on their phone, right? But at the same time, when a storm hits a village, or like a town, it feels like nobody has been in a storm before, doesn't know what to do, and needs to be saved by these randos who just drove into town 5 minutes ago. That was also one thing that didn't quite work for me.
That's actually interesting because you had that scene as well where, we've had this whole movie where so many storms have happened so many times. And then you have that one scene where I think they're like at the motel, and again, she consents. I think it's after the rodeo, and she's like saying that they need to go get cover or whatever. And you got those two people there that are like kind of arguing with the receptionist. And then they're like, oh, those things are just whatever. Like these storms don't actually, happen or whatever.
9 times out of 10, it's a false alarm, right?
Yeah. They're saying like 9 times out of 10, it's a false alarm. But like, it seems
Which is nonsense. Like if you live in that part of the world, you take storms seriously.
Yeah. And then for them to then not know that you shouldn't be in a car and then sort of get in the car and try to drive away from the storm and then get sucked up, it just seemed a bit too stupid, to be honest.
Also in the final sequence, the entire town just kind of panics and freezes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no sense that there's a plan.
No.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Which is weird because you would have expected there to be like a sense of, not even a sense, but a big feeling of realism in the film. And like I said, for me, some of the film, like just for me, I understand storms are random, but it's just the way that it happened. It felt unrealistic because I'm sure there's like weather forecasts. Sorry?
It just seemed on demand as well. It's like, it just, anytime it needed to in the movie, and there wasn't really any like rhyme or reason towards it. And again, in real life, there probably isn't any rhyme or reason towards a storm as well, but it just seemed too convenient every single time.
I think they exaggerated just how frequent they are. Just to keep the plot going, they could have shown a lot more downtime and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's kind of exaggerated to a comical degree where apparently every 15 minutes there's a devastating tornado that just flattens a town. If that was true, then nobody would live in the Midwest. There's probably a few big ones a year, and every few years one is a real problem. Like something that's probably the truth. I don't know, but yeah, for the sake of the movie, there had to be highly devastating storms constantly.
Do you think they should have done that approach though, where they're building up to like a few storms, like maybe 1, 2, even 3, but so they're building up towards that, and then they just use the moments in between to kind of like build character, like the whole concentrate on the character arc and the story itself, to like find solutions, to like build on like the solutions to counter the storms.
So here's how I would fix it. I would say they are forecasting the biggest storm of the decade, and they know it's moving towards Kate's hometown, right? Or it's likely to. And they know they have about a day until it happens. And for whatever reason, Kate's mother can't evacuate. And make her sick, make her bedridden, whatever it takes, right? But it's basically, if Kate doesn't succeed in the next day, it will flatten her hometown, and it will probably kill her remaining family. And then there's a ticking clock, and they have to figure out how to figure out the chemistry that disperses the storm, and they have only one shot at it. Because as it currently stands, if it doesn't work, why don't you try it on the next one? There was no sense of urgency. And I think that was the one the thing that was really missing from this as well. That I didn't understand why it had to be this storm where they make it work. Why can't they try the next time? And then again and again until it works, because that's how science works, right? You just keep trying and you keep improving, and finally it works. And I think that was just really poorly constructed, that this entire urgency, especially in the last half hour, was really artificial and not justified by the plot at all. Like what the first movie did with like the race between the two teams to make the prototype work first, where the audience understood very clearly why if you don't come in first, you come in last. Nothing like that was in this one. And it was really missing that, right? Like there had to be something where Kate has to figure this out now. And if she doesn't, then something bad happens.
And definitely. Question. What worked in Twisters? Because I think
like the first 20 minutes.
Okay.
Like when the characters are introduced and we get kind of introduced to this culture of stormchasers. I thought that worked pretty well. The thing that didn't work for me was really just the character stuff that really became more pronounced in the second half. But like the early setup, I thought was pretty good. Like we understood how these twisters work, why they're a problem, what the culture of stormchasers is like, what the different approaches, like different factions, if you will, are. That all worked really well. And that was the part that felt the most like the original. But at that point, it didn't have to deliver yet. And I think that's why that's easier. And that's why it worked best, I think.
Yeah, no, I think I can agree with Daniel there. Genuinely, like they made the whole idea of being a storm chaser seems like the coolest thing in the world. It just seemed like super exciting to sort of go out there and risk your life and like do all of that stuff. So I felt like that was done really well. Like outside of that, you're really grasping at straws for anything that was like really.
A lot of it is fine, and not a lot is great. Actually, now that you kind of mentioned it, I thought the whole idea of Tyler being a streamer, I thought was a really interesting idea. Because that kind of created a third type of storm chaser that wasn't viable 30 years ago. Right? Streaming didn't exist 30 years ago, and that was a neat way of updating the story and add an element to it that couldn't have existed in the first one. And they should have done more like this, but I can do a little bit of that, like the drone that was nothing 30 years ago in the same way. The problem was just that it didn't matter for anything, right? It didn't matter for his character. It didn't matter how he related to other people. It didn't matter past the first half hour, right? It didn't really matter what the conflict was or what the stakes were or anything like that. It's like background noise at some point, and it stops even existing, really.
That's what a lot of things in this movie as well. Like even the whole like her friends dying at the start of the movie, it just seemed like it didn't really matter too much. Like there wasn't enough conflict within her or sort of enough second guessing about sort of the chasing the storm and this, that, and the other. I mean, you had like parts of it, but it seemed like she kind of got over it pretty quickly and then was like super like good at what she does. Like you had like that one scene where they were trying to set up the radar and obviously she like panicked or whatever, but it just didn't seem to have enough consequence on her character, for me anyways, in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, she became focused on other things, right? But yeah, it kind of stops being important.
Yeah.
Like she does mention once or twice that it's still a motivation, right? That she's motivated by people. Too many people have been lost, and we need to put a stop to this. But that's kind of like there's no decision being made, or there's no trade-off being made because of this, right? It's just the motivation.
For me, I think even though my point is generic, I still believe the kills was what worked for me. Even though I did say that it lacks that sense of realism when it comes to the storms itself. I think when it comes to the kills, I could actually imagine that happening. Like it just looked so surreal. I was like, damn, like this must really touch the Americans. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it just, yeah, like I said, it just felt so surreal. And I don't know why, it hit different. Like I felt it. I was like, just imagine, like, I remember there was a scene where they went to the pool, right? And then it was when Tyler was trying to save the other guy. I think he was the hotel manager or something like that. And then there was just that scene where he told him to lay flat on the ground. And then you saw him stand up a bit. And me, I'm like, yo, I knew like before, I don't know nothing about storms, but I could tell like gravity is going to mess you up now, my guy, if you stand up just a little bit. And the way he stand up a little bit, and then the way the wind took him, I felt it. I'm like, my friend. I don't know, man. The kills were just, for me, is what really worked. It was really good.
And for us living in Europe, this is very alien, right? We don't, we make zero concessions to nature, right? Like we don't have earthquakes, we don't have storms, we don't have volcanoes. In Italy, there's less like 2 volcanoes or whatever, right? But like broadly, our lives are not determined by weather. Right, not in the same way, right? Where we build our lives around it, and we have contingency plans and have bunkers in our backyards to survive, the weather, right? It just seems to me like if you grow up in this area, it would be so ingrained in you that you would know what the protocol is and how to survive. And like the movies seem to be going back and forth about this as well.
That's why I can imagine how domestically. Not even why domestically. I'm guessing domestically in the box office sales, this is doing really well.
I think it seems quite well in the Midwest. Yeah, like this seems to really resonate with people.
Yeah, exactly. I can imagine. So yeah, it makes sense.
But I think it really harms the movie because I would really be interested to hear from somebody who lives in that area whether this rings true or not. Like that people are so casual about it or don't know what to do. Like I'm sure there's somebody, like some number of people will just do the wrong thing in that kind of situation. But it seems like everybody should at least know what you're supposed to do, even if you don't do it. And I wonder if that has an impact on your enjoyment of the movie if you are in that culture. If it's just unbelievable that somebody living in Oklahoma just doesn't know what to do in a storm. Because it bothered me, right? It made the movie less believable and I cared less about these characters because it didn't seem as real because of that.
All right. Were there any like memorable moments for you in this film?
I'm struggling, man. I'm actually
at least one where you're like, ooh, That was good.
So I think at the very end where she drives into the storm and then she pulls off that sequence, like the fireworks, and like it wasn't fireworks, but like the rockets and stuff like that. That looked cool. Or like when the first time they used those anchors on the ground, right? Like there were cool images in this at some point. But actually the storms were not that great. Like there weren't really all that many interesting, like in the first Twister you had like cows flying over the road. And there wasn't really anything where I said, okay, this is a cool image, or this is a creative use of that. Like it just all very, like it's just buildings being torn apart and there's a tree on the road. And that's kind of it. If you're going to do spectacle, aren't you going to do something like that?
I understand.
Oh, am I crazy? Am I too, like, are my standards too high?
No, I think they probably needed to have their like one set piece that they were going to make like absolutely crazy and bonkers and like have something wow the audience. And like you said, I didn't get anything like that from this movie.
So when the Twister goes through like that refinery and just the entire Twister's on fire, that was neat. That was neat. That was at least different.
So you guys didn't feel the intensity when it ripped through the theater?
No.
At that point, I stopped caring because we've kind of mentioned the pieces already, right? So the people there were just panicking, didn't know what to do in a storm, even though they live in that part of the world, right? And the protagonists decide they need to be the heroes who save the townsfolk, right? But why? They are just 5 guys in a van, and they kind of just drive up and start giving obvious orders, and that's supposed to make them heroes. That entire thing was so absurd and so contrived that I just didn't care. Like I legitimately checked out in the last 20 minutes and started making notes for this video because I said, okay, movie's over. Like there's nothing here anymore. Like that's the point where I decided, okay, it's done. I now know what the movie is doing and I don't like it.
Do you think more important people should have died to make this film a bit more interesting?
But then it takes away from the feel good. I did think about that, but I said it just makes it a little bit more heavier than what the movie was trying to set out to be. Whilst it would have made it probably a little bit more interesting, it just would have made it a little bit more dark. And I feel like this was just meant to be like a lighthearted, just kind of like feel good movie for people to kind of like go and watch.
I think there's more interesting ways to create drama than to just kill people. Mm-hmm. The obvious thing to do is like half the main characters die in the movie and you don't know which one, right? Like as you watch, you don't know who's going to make it. And that would be a cheap way and to do it. And I don't know, it would have made the movie better. I think really what you needed to do is you need internal conflict, right? You need a character to want 2 things. They can only have one. And the tornado kind of either is the reason why they can't have both, or are the reason why they don't have enough time to do it properly, or to think it all through, or whatever. So they have to make a decision now. I think that's how you would have created a satisfying drama, and that is just not there, really. Like it's like it's all about Kate all the time, and everything comes easy to her, right? In terms of her plot, right? And the movie would have been just much more interesting. Just one example, like I'm not trying to rewrite the movie, right? But what if both Tyler and Javi were like 2 different ideas of how to be a storm chaser, and she has to choose which is the better one. And it's not obvious, right? That's just a really obvious way to create tension that is not about will people die in the tornado. And the movie seems to think that is how you create tension in this movie. And I don't think it is.
Well, because this is such a dark topic, because technically it's natural disasters, right? Do you think it falls short of being that good film because it's portrayed in a lighthearted way?
I don't think it's that lighthearted. I think it takes the tornadoes seriously. And I've not seen anybody, like I've kind of heard of somebody saying this movie is bad because it doesn't talk more about climate change. But that's like somebody, like, which they could have, right? Yeah. But there's like a professional journalist kind of using a movie review as an excuse to talk about what they really want to talk about, right? That's not really a criticism of the movie. Like the movie could have talked more about climate change, but it doesn't really kind of skirts the topic twice, and that's kind of it. I don't think it's that lighthearted, and I don't think it's that serious topic that will be scrutinized in this way. I think that like the tone is perfectly adequate. It's what they do with it that's the problem.
But it does have that sort of jolly good feeling to it, especially like with the background music. Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? So that's why I kind of do feel like if the film, well, to be fair, it's doing good in box office sales. So they've got the formula.
I seem to be the only one who has a problem with this movie. I've not seen any other negative reviews of this movie. that would critique it on character or story. Everybody says it's a big dumb action movie, and we signed up for a big dumb action movie, and we got one, mission achieved. And I'm just saying, it's like Godzilla x Kong over again, right? Where people are saying, well, it's just big monsters fighting each other. What do you want? And I said, something creative, something interesting. That's what I want. And this movie had many opportunities to do this, and it just didn't. Just as you were talking, another idea occurred to me. What if Tyler had learned a lesson about responsibility and taking Storm seriously? What if it's all a big joke to him, and he, through watching Kate's passion and seriousness, realizes that actually there's more to this, there's more than views and subscribers to this, and that he has been neglecting or misusing his scientific training, and he can atone for that by helping her. That wasn't in the movie, right? That writes itself, right? That's not like rocket surgery. This is like really basic drama writing, right? And why is that not in the movie or anything like it?
I think they were too focused on the love interest and pushing her more towards him, because obviously they show him doing the humanitarian stuff as like a consequence of like the YouTube channel, and then they have to show Javi's character as he's working, or he's like being funded by like this like billionaire who's supposedly doing a bad thing by like buying people's businesses for like the cheap when it's been wrecked by the storm. Not completely the worst thing in the world, because if you've just been hit by a tornado and you don't have insurance, then someone buying you out probably isn't the worst thing in the world. But I feel like they took the easy route and the simple route in terms of just showing him to be the good guy, so that she can go to him and be, and then people can sort of root for them to get together, because he's like the perfect guy. He's like loud, boisterous, this and the other, but he's also someone that helps people out and this and the other.
Couple of different things. One of them is like with Tyler, like I really dislike how they handle Tyler here, because there's just so little there, and there could have been so much, right? There wasn't really an explanation for why he's such a blowhard and such a jerk at the start, and then just all around decent guy in the end. I didn't notice a character journey, right? And then we've got like these two aspects. We've got the charity, and then so the people who you think are just soulless, borderline grifters are actually running a charity, and the people who you think are the serious scientists are really just scouting for like real estate tycoons looking to exploit people. And I thought both of those were not handled properly, and were both rushed, and were both kind of taken for granted that the audience would just get it. So with the YouTubers, you could easily have, like, we know that some YouTube channels do a lot of charity and fundraising, right? And they could have shown this, right? Instead of just having them hand out 2 sandwiches and then leave again, they could have shown how they're live streaming from within the tornado, and you see the donations come in, and then they hand a check to the Red Cross or something at the end. Like, there would have been ways of making this more interesting, right, and more believable. And then we've got the real estate stuff. Like you say,
sorry to interrupt you for there, but it's extremely stupid that amidst like all the wreckage or whatever, they're selling T-shirts to then give people sandwiches in
the same people. Hey, we're selling tacky T-shirts as a as a fundraiser. Okay, fine, but they're selling it as the rubble is still smoking.
Yeah, it's crazy,
right? Like, that is just nonsense.
Yeah.
But then also like the food delivery, that's just literally just a picnic table with some sandwiches. It's not a truck full of emergency rations and hot blankets and whatever, and hot water or whatever else, right? Or drinking water or whatever else, right? And like, it really sounds like an excuse, right? Because they say, yes, we're doing charity, but you're feeding like 5 people, right? Like, how you're making a difference? Are you not taking up, like, in the real world, there are people like this who say they're doing charity, but they're just taking up space, and they get in the way of real disaster relief, right? And it looked a lot like this, but the movie wanted you to believe that it was actually like real charity, and they really were. This is how the reveal happened, that they're actually good people all along, and we were just misjudging them. Except we weren't misjudging them, we were judging them based on what the movie showed us. And that kind of annoyed me. Like, if that was outright manipulative, right? Because there weren't clues before where I could, in hindsight, say, "Oh, now I see the signs." I don't think that was there. I think it was a pure misdirect. It's not interesting storytelling, and it kind of puts me on the defensive as a viewer. And then we've got the second aspect of the real estate stuff. And like you said, I don't think they're doing anything sinister. Like sure, there's people who maybe sell below value or whatever, but the alternative is rebuild their house and have it be destroyed in 5 years again, maybe, right? Some of them might say, okay, I'm cutting my losses, I'm selling my land, and I'm moving somewhere else, right? And nobody's being pressured, nobody's being scammed, nobody's being lied to. All they're doing is making offers, right? Mm-hmm. And because they are rich real estate guys, which they're just coded as evil. And that is how I think that's the beginning and end of that argument.
Yeah, that antagonist presence isn't really feel strong enough. Like, it didn't really make sense. Like, because it didn't seem like they didn't have to accept. Like, the people that they were offering to buy land from, they didn't have to accept. Unless if they push the narrative that, okay, they've conjured up some sort of plan where people would have to end up accepting their deal, then yeah, maybe. But
we also didn't see them be very desperate.
Yeah.
Right? Like we never really saw an example of this is why this is not as benign as you think it is. It's just assumed.
Also, like, it didn't, well, unless I missed it, it didn't really make sense why they were scanning the tornadoes to sort of get a 3D image of it. Is it explained in the movie at all? Because if
what's explained in the movie is that it allows them to predict the tornadoes better. And that means that the land developers know where to make the offers, but they can just follow, like, look on the news which town was destroyed and then show up. They don't need to predict it.
No, literally.
That doesn't work at all.
Yeah. When they were like showing it or starting to reveal, like they were like trying to get the 3D scans or whatever, I thought that it was going to be that they were going to try and make the tornadoes worse somehow, or like make them a little more frequent, or this any other, so that they can destroy more land so that they can then build more land or whatever. But it just seemed to go nowhere.
I think what it should have been or could have been is that the two kind of realize they kind of benefit from pooling their resources, and for the greater good they will work together. And like the profit motive is a distraction, and now we're doing the pure science. And that's kind of what they do, but also not really. There isn't really a moment where the two sides are antagonistic and then something happens and they realize that they have more in common than is different between them or whatever. Like, it's kind of there with Jarvi, right? But also not in an interesting way, right? Because he doesn't really have that, like, he doesn't really have a character, right? He doesn't really have a motivation other than agree with Kate at the end, right? And he just hands her the data. I didn't notice any character journey really, where he starts off in one place and then kind of like we can follow along the steps of this is how he ends up seeing things Kate's way, or how she has to convince him that her way is right, and without that she can't complete her mission, right? Because she does get, like, the only way she needs him is that she needs the measurement data to complete the model, and that allows her to get the formula right. But that's just technobabble. Like, there's no character moment, there's no decision or anything like that hinges on that. It just happens very easily and quickly, and they literally just punch in some numbers and it works. So it's the humanity that's missing, right? Like, there should have been some big, what's called road to Damascus moment, right? Where Jarvi maybe makes some big decision and sees things from a different way or something. It's kind of there, but it's half-assed. And that should have been the movie. That should have been like there's three different types of storm chasers. You've got the corporate ones, you've got the science ones, you've got the entertainment ones. And they kind of end up all having to work together because it's like there's no enemy here. There's only the storm. And there should have been character moments that lead you to that point where you see that they can only defeat the storm if they all work together because they each have a piece of the puzzle. Something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be specifically that, but that would have been something.
I definitely understand. I definitely agree. So, last thoughts.
It's just a missed opportunity, right? Like, the movie doesn't understand why these kinds of movies work, and that is basic humanity and character drama, right? And it just forgets to put it there. Like, it doesn't create the kinds of situations and dynamics that would be interesting to watch. And just watching CGI storms for 2 hours is not that interesting. Like, we have to care about the people, and we have to feel what they feel, and we have to feel the tension when we are waiting for them to overcome their obstacles. And all of that is missing for some very superficial stuff that kind of feels good if you're not paying attention. I think the movie kind of relies on people kind of going in saying, well, this is a big dumb blockbuster, and so I'm going to turn my brain off. But it could be so much better if like there was like a proper character foundation in this that used the twisters to enable that conflict. And the reason I kept harping on about the first movie so much is because that did it, right? All you had to do was copy it. If it was a straight remake, it would be a better movie.
No, honestly. That kind of leads into my point as well. I think for me personally, this was a solid movie. It was a movie that, it worked, but it was a movie that worked and it was solid due to the nostalgia, just due to nostalgia. I think that it was heavy reliant on that. And that's why they've kind of gotten away with the BS, some of the BS that they were showing us. A lot of remakes, they generally don't go the extra mile trying to give us like, you know, a fresher film, fresher outlook, fresher story. You know, they just kind of just like, okay, we already got something we already got a successful IP. So let's just make more money and let's just add to that. As in like, let's just create another story that we know there's a high chance of it being successful due to obviously the original. And yeah, just like I said, just for me, I think it was just a solid film. It's just a movie where you switch your brain off, you watch, you enjoy certain moments, and you leave having a goodish all right experience.
I feel like this movie is rewarding the wrong things in Hollywood in it doing so well at the box office. And it's been a trend in a lot of like recent or modern movies where character and story just comes second. And we've like mentioned it in so many reviews that we've done this year so far where they just don't care. They don't care enough about that. And again, like Daniel's mentioned so much about like the 90s. And when I think about like a lot of like the 90s movies that I've watched in the past, yeah, they were like feel-good movies and this and the other, but a lot of them had that conflict within the character. A lot of them had tension or whatever, like that made the story a little bit more interesting and made you care a little bit more about the characters. I feel like, you know, movies like this, like Ghostbusters that we did previously, The Beekeeper, stuff like that, a lot of it is just like missing. So yeah, you know, we're not asking for, you know, this to be, you know, super complex and super deep or whatever, but it's just small elements or small conflicts that you can introduce, just make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more engaging than just go to the movies, switch your brain off and watch some, you know, fight scenes or some twisters like blow around the place. It's just not what I'm looking for. And it's just super underwhelming knowing that this is doing extremely well when there's like other movies that, you know, haven't sort of been received as well. But such is the case, you know, we're going to continue getting more of this stuff.
What would you guys rate this film?
I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 10. And I know I said it was like serviceable, it was whatever, but to me, it's a lot of a nothing movie, to be honest. I didn't really get anything from it. It's not even one that I would even want to sit and watch again in the future. Like, again, there isn't that rewatchability that a lot of previous older movies have. There's a reason why like movies like Elf, for example, is like the Christmas movie that people watch all the time, or like The Grinch and this and the other. And it's just like, I don't know, it's not got anything like that for me in this, so 3 out of 10.
Yeah, it's just missing the basic humanity, right? And for that reason, it's a 5 out of 11 for me.
For me, I'd give it a borderline 6 out of 10. I'm appreciating certain moments more so than the movie as a whole. And I think the moments it made it for me. And when I say made it for me, as in like it made it for me in the sense where I didn't view it as a garbage film. 6 out of 10. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, today's discussion, whatever the hell you want to call it. Hervé?
Yeah, don't forget to let us know your thoughts on this Twister movie. I really have nothing to say about this. So, like, if you had any thoughts about this movie at all, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, let us know in the comment section. And yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.
Thanks, guys, and we will catch you next week. Au revoir. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.